Hey everybody, welcome back. I am with a dear friend and fellow martial artist, Qigong badass, Tristan Truscott, who is one of my favorite people to interview, and we're gonna have a lot of fun this hour because we're gonna talk about the origin of our origins. We're gonna talk about the root of our connection with nature, and that's energy and vitality in Qi. Tristan, welcome to the summit.
Thank you, my brother, and thank you for such an amazing work you're doing in the world. This is massive, man. This is what we call big Qi right here.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Like I said before, it took us 9 months to make a baby. It took 4 years to make this one. So, you know, it's been a lot of work, and we are proud of it. And now it's just about sharing the movie. And if you're listening to this right now, if you haven't shared the movie yet, please do. It's about letting this go viral and letting people wake up to the message, which is not my message, it's our message. It's all of our message.
Beautiful, brother. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I think that's what we all signed up for, isn't it? To help each other grow and evolve, and that's what you did. You found your purpose, and you just infused it into this movie and brought all of these people together with the same message. Let's go home. Let's return to the origin. You know, it's such a noble vision, and it's something that's tangible. It's possible. We can do this now, even in the middle of all this insanity. We can do this. So I'm excited to help.
Yeah, well, man, you've been helping a lot of people. So just a little background. You're a sensei. You have been in the martial arts for a very long time. You had, you know, some injury energy that you transformed yourself, and you've been a key influencer in that part of the world. And so you've been teaching people how to connect with their Qi, their energy, their purpose for a very long time, and you look really young, so it's working.
For 90, I'm doing good.
Yeah, totally, man. Just tell me what supplements you're taking, right?
I'm breathing in the good air, brother.
That's it, man. That's it, and that's what I want to share with people. Is, you know, this is our opportunity to kind of go to the land of Qi and talk about what energy is and what our ancient connection with the earth was, has been, and shall remain, so long as our orientation or perspective gets tuned back into where we come from. And so let's talk about vitality and how it comes from the elements, and let's have a good time. I mean, you and I riff like real well, so
Yeah, let's just flow. Well, you know, for me, I think the first time that I ever felt the elements and I felt the Qi, if you will, and I didn't know what to call it. It didn't have a name for it, but it was the ocean. It was surfing. It was getting my feet in the sand, you know, as a young man, 13, feeling very disconnected at 13 already. Stress, as what we call psychosomatic disorders today, grinding my teeth in the middle of the night, sweaty palms, nervousness, migraine headaches at 13. You know, that's craziness. And my mom remarried, brought me to Malibu, California. And I fell in love with surfing and martial arts. That's where I met my sensei. And so I think that's the beginning of the journey for many people, is returning to nature, which the movie does so beautifully, is it gets us reconnected to the natural way of things. And I think that's what Qigong or Qi or life is all about, is when I was sitting on that surfboard, waiting maybe for a wave, I was just soaked up in it. It was like osmosis, and it was happening to me naturally without me doing anything. I didn't know about meditation. I didn't know about Qi. I didn't know about natural healing. I just was in the elements, and it was doing it for me. So I think that was my introduction to what we're talking about. And I bet a lot of people can relate to that.
yeah, it's look, if you don't have any connection with nature, then man, that's your first stop. And you know, you look at the classics with like the Taoist masters and all these guys that, you know, taught this stuff for millennia. And you know, the way to find yourself was to go out into the mountains and get lost in the mountains and cultivate your Qi for, you know, months or years at a time, until you literally reversed aging and did all sorts of amazing things that the masters have, you know, shown us over the years. But it wasn't like, you know, go do it in the village square. You find nature for such a thing.
Yes, totally. And that's what needs to happen, I think, is to find a sacred place that you can call your own, where you can go and start a practice or just have some time to yourself. I mean, why do we love to just go on walks, even if it's around the block, right? At our home, we get outside, we start breathing in the fresh air again, we get out of in front of the darn computer or in front of the television or trapped in the four walls of the house. And we just start to even get some sunshine, some vitamin D. But if you can go to some sacred places, that's what I You can have one in your garden, just a little spot. I've got one in the corner of my garden. It's my sacred place when I need to get away and go do my Qigong. Now, I love to go. I live in Austin, Texas, and I think I was telling you, Pedram, that there's this natural spring here. And I go swimming there, and the water and the elements and the environment, they reset me. And I do that before going to work, right? So establishing myself in this healthy energy so that I can be aligned. You mentioned the word purpose. Like, I think nature brings us back to the clarity of purpose, what's important to us. And I think that's what those masters were talking about, is go and find yourself and use nature as a vehicle, as an environment to remember who you really are and who you want to be. So I do that before the busyness of the day, before I load up the emails and get going. And I'll go down to this little dock area or the natural spring, and I'll just do these gentle flowing motions. I know how much you love Qigong, and I've watched you. You've got some great videos out there, and I think you're in a similar environment, and it's just gorgeous nature behind you, and you're just standing and flowing and breathing. And that's what Qi is all about, reconnecting to that.
Yeah, and so for those of you who don't know what we're talking about with the word Qi, it's the translation is energy, but it's the currency of energy in all of life, right? And so in the ancient traditions, there was Jing, Qi, and Shen, which was like your essence or your vitality, then your energy, and then the spirit that emanates, and the kind of the glow of the aura that comes off of that. And the cultivation of that energy became the flow of life, and our relationship with everything in our universe was predicated on our connection with that Qi. And when you're in a natural environment, you're bathing in all of this wonderful Qi that's flowing all around you, and you're part of this ecosystem of Qi as well. But then when we block things off and pave the ground and go up in these buildings and not really have the energy of nature in mind, what we've done is we've stifled and blocked off. So yes, I teach people in hyper-urban environments to ground on the floor and pull up their Qi and all these types of things. And we'll go there because obviously someone from Detroit watching this right now is like, man, it's like, you know, -20 outside. I'm not going anywhere.
Out there.
Yeah, so we'll teach you how to connect with nature right now in your body. But, you know, suffice it to say, connecting with your inner nature while in nature is really kind of the gold standard. So if you could do that, I mean, it's just so much the better.
Totally. You know, this word Qi is confusing to a lot of people. It sounds so mystical and esoteric. It certainly was to me, being even a martial artist who was in tune with nature and a surfer. You know, I'd heard about Tai Chi, and I'd heard a little bit about that word Qigong, but I was used to seeing something, you know, with bone on, you know, muscle. Let me hit it. I'll show you energy. We'll hit. But this mystical concept around Qi kind of turned me off personally, and I made fun of it, which is so kind of hilarious to me today that I am a teacher of these internal arts, and I'm the esoteric energy guy. And I'm not esoteric. I'm really down to brass tacks, practical. If I can't feel it, if I can't show it in my physicality that there's a vitality, then I can't talk about it. But I can say, you know, my body's getting close to 50. I feel young. I feel vibrant. Yes, I've had healing, and I attribute so much of my healing to tapping into this energy. It's breath, it's air. Qi, that word means air or breath. Some people say that means spirit. We inspire, we draw spirit into us, and the breath is sacred. You know, the breath is so freely given. It's right here, it's right under our nose, and yet we take it so for granted. Anyone who's just a meditation teacher or a stress management expert, the first thing they're going to tell you to do, take some deep breaths, slow the mind down, calm the nervous system, elicit the relaxation response. Let's get the neuroimmunology working again through deep breathing. Well, that's what Qi is all about. It's about returning that natural flow of breath and drawing more. And we can get into how you can cultivate it. You know, you use your mind as part of the equation, but you use movement, mind, and breath. And it's a beautiful dance, and it integrates those three together. And you can feel it between your hands. See, I'm no longer a skeptic. I get it. I feel the electromagnetic energy between my palms. It's a very real energy. It's not mystical to me anymore.
I love that because you see, for those of you guys listening, my there's a lot of reasons to love Tristan, but one of the reasons that I have him as my go-to Qi conversation person in the world, right, is because he brings it down to earth, right? And one of the things I've been saying for a very long time is I never ask anyone to believe in Qi. Once you experience Qi, we can talk about it, right? And so belief is, this kind of weird place where you kind of cross over and let go of, your rationality in some ways. And I could get a room of, 50 people and 48 of them will feel Qi within, half an hour, and the other 2, it might take them a week. But, and I'm assuming that's your experience of that as well.
Absolutely. There's always 1 or 2 people, and usually it's a thought that's blocking it, but it could be something in the physicality of the body too.
Yeah, so then the question is, if you could feel this, and it's a real tangible thing in your body between your palms, what is it? And I'd love to talk about that, because we live in a world right now where, you're talking about electromagnetic energy that you can feel between your palms. And we live in a world where we're being bombarded by electromagnetic radiation and pollution. And so it seems like, all over the place, right? Hold up your phone, we're communicating via technology. And so, one of the main through lines of the movie is how can we live in a healthy way with tech? And one of the ways that I do it, and I know you do the same, is I will tech cleanse my energy field several times a day. So I'd love to talk about that and how this really kind of brass tacks tactics work in the modern urban life of someone who's listening to this.
That's great, Pedram. Let's talk about that, because when you start to learn more about how this energy flows through your body, you find that the ancient scientists, they mapped it out. They understand the channels. They're called meridians, and the acupuncturist knows exactly how to stimulate them with little needles on certain points or acupressure, and it helps this current of energy flow better through the body, through the circuitry of the body. And as it flows better, you feel better. But that can get disrupted, and the things that disrupt it are not only poor food and poor environment and chemicals and all those kinds of things and stress, but like you said, it's these darn things. It's the electromagnetic pollution in the power lines, the microwaves, the Bluetooths, the cell phones, the towers, all of that. It's constantly bombarding your electromagnetic circuitry. So you're getting disrupted. So I love that you said a tech cleanse. Tech is a beautiful thing. It's simplified our lives in so many ways, but it's kind of like loading a gun and not knowing what to do with it, man. You can really harm yourself with technology. So I believe that our tech requires also a great responsibility. And one of those responsibilities is to balance your system, your body that's made of energy, so that you can handle your tech and your tech doesn't burn you out, freak you out, affect your moods, affect your health. And then how good is tech now? It doesn't serve you at all. Mm-hmm. So we do these practices, these mind-body healing practices that cleanse the body, if you will. They literally repair the broken links, the channels that get cut or disrupted. If you could see the flow of the energy, like if we could map it out and show it on a screen for you, you would see like breaks and separations. And the Qi needs to flow healthy like a fluid stream. Think of like a tree that falls in a river, and it blocks the energy, the water on one side, and on the other side it's depleting. Well, you know that the blocked energy on this side is going to start to get stagnant and smell, and that tree needs to be removed so it can flow. And I think that's what we're talking about, is doing the cleanse, is getting it to flow as it was meant to.
Yeah, and we live in a world where we sit too much, we eat crappy food, we're getting poisoned, and a lot of things we talked about in the movie, and so it's even more important to jumpstart that flow in a toxic, stagnant world where we're not walking under oak groves and understanding the way the wind blows or any of these types of things that our ancestors 2 generations ago it was like the center of their universe. It's like they would talk about the weather because it affected them. Right? Now you just punch some numbers into your iPhone and walk away, and your house stays in that, the Nest takes care of all that for you. And so, outside doesn't matter, day or night doesn't matter, none of that matters. And there's a price to be paid for disconnection from those rhythms.
You're so right. When I was a kid, and I know you get this, I didn't have a computer. I didn't have a cell phone. I played outside. I went to the beach. I rode my skateboard. I ran home from the bus stop. I was outside and moving my body, and we look at people today, and our butts are stuck in these chairs and in these environments, and our tech keeps us bound. And so I love how the movie really exposes the original way, and wow, how far we've come from that. And so the message is so simple. Really, it's a simple return to natural ways. And even if you can't be outside, like you said earlier, what can you do to create those natural rhythms again in your body through the food, through restful sleep, through mindful awareness? And I would have to say, Pedram, that with all the people that I work with, and I work with a lot of folks around the world, and I have my own studio here. I've had it for 22 years, so I've worked with, it's my laboratory. I see a lot of stressed out people, man. A lot of stressed out people come through those doors, and they're looking to return. They don't know that per se. Maybe they think I want more discipline or confidence or need to learn how to protect my family. That's great. But as soon as we start to reset their nervous system and get them to flow and breathe, and that stress starts to clear away, and they get clear and present again, that's happening just through the exercises. So you don't have to go anywhere special to do this. So maybe we should talk a little bit about what can you do and how do you do it.
Yeah, and I'd like to even take a pause quickly and say, look, if you're listening to us right now and you're going, yeah, that underlying stress, I kind of know what you're talking about. Or maybe you're just so far gone you don't even know what you're talking about. Can you lead us for like 30 seconds into a couple breaths for people to just...
Yeah, man, let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's do it in our chairs.
Yeah.
Here's a simple way to recalibrate. I think one of the things that happens is our nervous system gets so bound and so tight that we don't even notice that there's stress. I remember one student said to me, she said, Tristan, I didn't even realize that I was stressed until I met you. And I'm like, well, thanks. You're super high strung. So I had her squeeze her hands and bring her arms in and turn them like this. It's a old I Chuan technique, and you're going to squeeze your whole body and your core, which is around the core. I don't know if you can see in the camera here, but there's an energy center here around the solar plexus, and below, the Chinese call it the dantian, right? Or the yogis call it the hara, okay? The Japanese call it the hara. It's where this life force can build, okay? And because of emotions and stress, this gets very tight, and we feel emotionally off here. So we're going to squeeze those muscles. We're going to squeeze the muscles of the arms and the chest and the whole body. And as we do it, we're going to take a breath in and get really tight. And squeeze and hold and squeeze your legs together and even your face a little. And now you're going to start to breathe out. Just relax the hands down. And that's just sort of to recalibrate the body and just sort of shake free for a second. Maybe we do one more of those. Pull your hands in, squeeze them out, tighten, breathe in, let the breath come out. Just take both your hands and place them on your lower belly, and eyes open or closed, it doesn't matter. Just notice where your breath's going and try to draw it down into the belly. In fact, put one hand on your chest and one on your belly. And maybe go ahead and close those eyes so you can focus your mind and notice where's your breath moving the most. And what I'd like to encourage you to do is use your mind to draw your awareness from the top of your head all the way down to your belly button, and see if you can expand that, not by pushing with your tummy muscles, but by actually relaxing. Relax your diaphragm, and as you breathe in, your belly should rise up a little. And you can do that a couple more times. And this is a center where you can actually build your life force. It's the lower dantian, or the power center. And as you open your eyes and just, notice that you're probably a little more present just because you've stimulated your nervous system, you've drawn more oxygen into your body. A well-oxygenated body simply lives longer. You've fed your brain more oxygen through your bloodstream, which helps to clear that mental fog. And you've helped to stimulate some of these energy channels and centers. That's a super simple thing, but I bet some folks were noticing this area up here moving a lot. And we actually are over-oxygenated. We have too much oxygen and not a balance of the oxygen and the carbon dioxide. So these deep diaphragmatic belly breaths, like the way your dog breathes, you look at a little baby breathe, their tummy moves up and down, that's what creates the perfect rhythm. So just that practice alone, I think, could help a lot.
That's fantastic, and thank you for that. Dogs and babies are a lot closer to nature than we are. We tend to take a trip away from nature and stay away because there's so many shiny objects in civilization that cause all kinds of problems. So, most people can either relate to dogs or babies who are listening here. There's something that you did there that's really potent, and I want to touch on it because what we just did, folks, was a classic relaxation response, and that lower abdominal breathing has been proven to switch from sympathetic nervous system to parasympathetic nervous system. And why that's important and how that's relevant is that, you know, we talked a lot about fight or flight in the movie, and that stress state that, you know, you're in but you quickly get out of when you are either, you know, in a situation where you have to flee or fight for your life. And so the little triggers that zap us into that every single day, you know, the cell phone bill that you got that you didn't expect was going to be that much, you know, the property tax that you forgot about, how the hell are you going to make it, you know, all these things, they elicit the same response. And so we have millions of inputs every day triggering us to flip to sympathetic. And a lot of times we just have to consciously drive back down to parasympathetic to balance out the nervous system. In the old days, you would just relax or take a nap after lunch, but who the heck does that nowadays? So this, what you just taught, is a really powerful way to really hack into your basic core biology and bring balance back to your nervous system, right?
Simple and fast. And let me riff off that. You know, if you guys make a little bit more sound, I call it the sound breath work, your nervous system, your brain, a part of your brain called the amygdala, the fight or flight center, is actually stimulated through visual and through through all your senses, through taste, and you see something coming too quick and you flinch, your nervous system takes over. Well, we're sort of on a low response, flinch, flinch, flinch. That's what stress is. You just don't see it visually. If we could magnify your stress, you'd be like this, you'd see it, but it's flying under that cognitive radar. But what happens when you make the sound of your breath? What's the opposite of the sound of this? It's this. Just to pull in, right? So just by listening through your auditory system, try it. Breathe in. Listen. You're going from contraction to expansion. You're reversing that amygdala response. You're eliciting the relaxation. You're moving from sympathetic into parasympathetic. Your whole body goes like this. Oh, it's safe. We want to go to a safety zone. So yeah, it was a simple exercise, but it's super powerful. And you move from there, physical body, into energy body. And that's when we would start working the breath and the movement and the visual to feel the chi.
Oh man, I love this. So okay, one more note on this before we start moving into big chi here, which is, if you guys notice what Tristan was doing also was this contraction of the body down to the hara before we let it go. And if you look at an animal in crisis, they will always ball up when they're stressed, because what you're avoiding is the predators, and the back of the body is the armor, right? So a million times a day we do this little like inner coil, which leaves the center of the body tense and full of stagnation. Yeah, so I mean there's a number of really powerful things in that little tiny exercise that reverse the departure from our natural unwinding that we've habitually done for millennia, and now it's just like, whatever, drink some coffee, move on, dude.
You're so tapped in, Pedram. I love it. It's so awesome to you to have this experience with a brother, somebody who knows these practices. You've lived this yourself, you live it, and yet you're a real person in the real world with a real busy life doing really cool stuff, but you're integrating it. That's the key, right? Integration. You know, we can learn about these things. Great information. Awesome. What happens? You get inspired. Great. The next thing, freaking implement it and do that consistency so you integrate it and own it. That's the missing key in most people, is they don't know how to get started. They don't implement. But we've given you a simple tool. Who can't do that and listen to the breath? Try it every day, see what happens.
That's it. Start there. And, I mean, if you look at us, I mean, we're not these hippie trippy dudes, right? We both have, yeah. Well, you're wearing a little, yeah. You're wearing a little bit of it. You know, I'm not wearing it now, but you know, my whole thing with my students is I don't need you to go get a yin yang tattoo or change your name and like have a new yoga identity yourself, right? Just relax. Just find your own inner balance. And that's where we're going with this, guys, is, you know, you could take these ancient practices and bring them into the modern world so they inform the way that you walk through the world, and not pull you out of the world. I'm not an advocate for run for the hills, right? Because that's what's been happening since the 60s, and the few people that stayed are the ones that did the clean air legislation, the Ken Cooks of the world, who are, you've heard a lot of these guys in the summit who stayed in the cities and fought the good fight that helped us preserve, the air quality, the water quality, all these things that, we're challenged with right now, right? So what we would rather you guys do is wake up to your potential, get back into nature, your inner nature, and obviously connect with nature out there. But this isn't a call to action saying the world is screwed, go move, Yoda moved out to Dagobah type of thing, right? Like you gotta live your life with your family and do it with a greater sense of balance. Would you agree?
Beautifully said, brother. And we're not getting out of this environment. This is where we live. This is what we've chosen, and we can make it beautiful. And we can balance all of this stuff, man. This is a call to action to get back to balance. And when we walk this path, we affect the whole community, man. We affect, starting with the family, the community. It breaks out, becomes viral like this movie's going to be. But it starts with one single decision. One little decision. An empowered, decisive decision. I will do this. I will do it. And without that drive, without that, I've had enough. I've suffered enough. I've been in enough pain. I'm ready. Sometimes we need the pain to make the change. But as soon as you implement, you start to reap the benefit. I would say this: acknowledge your shift. Maybe you're somebody who's already had a powerful shift, but maybe a little complacency, a little plateau, whatever. You're ready for more, next level. It's stages. It's like belts for me in martial arts. Take that inspiration, use it, and then acknowledge that you've changed. That's what keeps you going. You've got to recognize transformation in yourself. Look in the mirror, see it.
That's powerful, because most people will do something and then go back to the thermostat setting that they were set on, go back to their old friends, their old ways. My wife has 2 glasses of dinner, wine with dinners, and I did that healthy thing for a while, and now, yeah, sure, I'll have some wine. You fall right back into these ruts. And what you're saying there is you need to kind of plant a stake and say, no, I'm moving on now. I'm growing. I'm evolving. I'm shifting that dynamic.
For me, my friend, I chose a new identity. You've always got the two people inside you. You got the lazy guy and the motivated, productive guy. But I think there's somebody beyond those two spectrums. There's the higher self. We can go to Shen now. We talked about Jing and Qi and Shen. Shen is that awakening of your core spiritual essence, all right, your purpose. We get a little esoteric here. There's a calling. There's something inside you that wants to be the highest version of yourself. I say that's getting a Y-identity. Get your Y-identity, man. Who do you want to be? Why do you want to be that person? Stick that stake in the ground, like you said. Implement those mind-body rituals to protect you from the other stuff that's always going to be there. There's always going to be things trying to pull us. Always. That's part of the dance of life. But if you want to be, I sometimes call it a spiritual warrior, maybe that's too strong, but be a purposeful warrior, you got to fight a little bit for what you believe in and who you want to be. So you got to put that stake in. You got to get strong. That's what I love about the martial arts. It's not just soft and flowing and yin. It's like, I'm here, baby. I'm stepping up. I'm owning my purpose, and get out of my way. When you have that, you become unstoppable. But it requires the identity.
I love that word. Yeah, I mean, if you think about the stakes in the martial arts, if I'm not present, I'm punched in the nose, right? Or you get stabbed by a spear. I mean, you are forced to be present and acknowledge your mortality in every given moment, which makes the warrior mind a very powerful one for a metaphor for how we carry life. And I want to stay on this Shen thing. So in Taoist and Chinese thinking, Shen, or spirit, is where our mind is locked, and the energy will always follow the Shen. So whether you are stuck in some sort of health crisis, or you're stuck in this, saying, okay, well, I understand what these guys are trying to do in this movie, but Monsanto is too big, or the politicians are all corrupt, and so you've created some sort of belief system that whatever you do isn't going to make a difference, then your Shen does not allow your Qi or your energy to flow through and actually see that reality go through. So a lot of this has to do with mindset and beliefs and memes and things that get in your way, because we think that we're way smaller than we are, and most of us are puny in our self-image because we've been, you know, browbeaten into that somehow. And so I'd love to talk about helping people liberate that a bit and opening their Shen and blockages that keep them from their greatness.
You know, maybe this is why the struggle in life is there, deliberately to get our attention, to pay attention, to release and relax enough that we can get out of the way and allow ourselves to elevate up to this highest Shen. It's sort of like a default. I think we all have a default of love, beauty, vitality, benevolence. We have that highest potential. But whatever it is that blocks us between that Shen and the energy traveling to its default is what our lessons are. And so own everything again. Take it. Go, okay, I've got this illness in the body. What is it trying to teach me? Rather than how do I suppress this, or how do I avoid this, or how do I cut this thing out of me? How do I move towards it and use it as something to awaken my Shen? See, now it has a purpose, right? Now every challenge in life can have a core, amazing gift hidden inside. And I know how freaking hard that is in the middle of struggle to go, oh yeah, it's a gift. You know, you want to just go, screw you. No, it's not a gift. It's not. Suffering isn't grace in disguise in those moments. But if you can just stay a little open in the middle of that intensity, if you're in that, there is a blessing inside. At least I can say that from my own experience. I had used the back injury, you know, being totally disconnected from that energy. And you know what it was, Pedram? It was several things, but I think one of it was I was not aligned with my purpose. And I know that sounds like so big, but I really was going down the wrong path, man. I was using my martial arts for just fighting. I was getting real warrior-like, too much about the fighting. And it was meant to be, I think, in this life about the service. And so that spirit or that Shen was helping to guide me back home, and it was creating the blockage until I was able to navigate through that and return to where I was meant to be going. That's how I see it, and that's what's working for me.
That's beautiful. I remember relatively early in my martial arts career, I went to one of these big conferences where all these like high mucka masters were there. And I was with my sifu, so they call it sensei in Japanese for the audience and sifu in Chinese. So I was with my sifu because I did traditional, still do, traditional Taoist and Shaolin Kung Fu from the Chinese side. And so, you know, I'd see some guy over there and he'd be like, oh, well, that's, you know, so-and-so. I'm not going to call out any names here. He's, you know, the founder of this lineage. And the guy's just hobbling around on a cane. And, you know, he's got two students helping him walk. And like, oh, and, you know, who's that over there? Oh, that's the founder of this lineage. And the guy's also, you know, like one bum leg and like a broken jaw and all this kind of stuff. And then I go, well, who's that guy? Right? And he'd say, oh, that's a Tai Chi master. How about that guy? Oh, that's a Qigong master. So you see these other guys that look like they're walking on air and just floating and full of vitality. And the guy's like 90 years old. He looks not a day over 60. He's got more hair than I do, right? And I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm standing here at a crossroads. Yeah. I'm looking down the barrel of, you know, being a badass martial artist who will eventually be the lion that gets eaten.
Yeah.
Or someone who transforms what this is about and being, you know, full of chi and full of life and radiance and nourishing my body along the path. So I'd love to talk about the culture or the discipline of always gathering nectar and nourishing your vitality and making that a part of how we walk, because that seems to be something that's missing. It's like, I'm going to go until it breaks, then I'll go to the doctor and he'll replace a couple parts, and then I go back to it. And that way is obviously not working. So let's talk about the ancient way.
Okay. Well, there's a beautiful word in the martial arts. The word is Budo, and it means a path. It's a purposeful or a higher path, not higher than anyone else, just a path for you to be your highest potential. And it's nice to have a path. It's like a direction that you're choosing to go, like we talked about a identity earlier. And so the martial artist signs up fully to become this artist on this path, on this journey. And we were talking about Shen and spirit, and that was a beautiful story, Pedram, about those different teachers. And when you start to look at the ones who are tapping into this energy, this life force, this chi, this way of flow, we do see the vitality, we see the health, and we see a glow, not only in their skin and we see it in their smile. They seem to be tapped into some kind of joy. Something very beautiful is happening in them. I saw that in Aikido with the founder, Morai Ueshiba. I looked at pictures of him when he was a younger man as a warrior. He was very stern and stoic. And I looked at him as an older man, and he is glowing and smiling. What was that path, that Buddho? He says Buddho is love, that took him from where he was to this very evolved Shen-like being. And it's the paths that we choose that are in alignment with who we're meant to be and that have a higher purpose. So arts like Tai Chi and Qigong, they have a nectar in the practice that is designed to cultivate your awakening. Your remembering, I think, is even more beautiful word sometimes. It's not like awakening is a way out there and one day you become this realized being. It's already here. We just have the amnesia that all these things we're talking about create. But then there's the practice that opens the amnesia away, clears it away, and you go, ah, I remember now. That's why I call my method Satori, which means to remember or to awaken. Mm. And so I think that was what you're asking, is how do we go in that direction with our practice? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so it's choosing a practice that feels aligned to you, that has that juice, that nectar, that vitality. And of course for me, and I know for you, we've chosen Qigong and Tai Chi and meditation and yoga. I think it's kind of obvious, isn't it? What's working and what's not. It's not that difficult.
Well, that's just it. I mean, for thousands of years, these things have worked for hundreds of millions of people consistently. So it's probably a good place to start, right? Yeah. And so, you know, one of the through lines in the movie, when we talked about, and man, we had some amazing experiences in Africa. And when you're out there in the primal bush and you're just disconnected from everything except the sounds of the animals and the wind and the movement of the sun and all these things, it really is a very similar feeling of, you know, kind of like your outer nature connecting with Mother Nature. But then there's this other element of your inner nature connecting with all nature that is kind of like the as above, so below principle here. And I'd love to talk about that, like the elements and our inner nature and how when we connect inside, how things just kind of like line up and connect on all levels.
So I get that, what you just shared, because as a young man learning martial arts, it was very externally focused at first, you know, punching and kicking and throwing and sweeping and trapping, and that was my training, and that was beautiful. But, you know, I was still not where I wanted to be as far as emotionally, right, and mentally. I had self-consciousness. I still felt fear, even though I was this strong, tough guy. And it led me to the internal arts, little by little, through the yoga and the meditation, eventually the Qigong. And I like to call it the great U-turn. It's where you go in before you go out. Rather than going out there trying to figure it all out and fix it, go inside yourself where the wisdom and the life force and the energy is, and then go out. So to your point, I think it's so important to go home, to do the internal practice. That could start with food, just putting the right food inside. Life force pregnant food to start affecting your flow. But I do think it's so important to get out of this externally oriented brain and go inside and breathe, and you start to internally navigate yourself. It's wonderful inside. You know, at first it was scary. You know, it's dark. I close my eyes and I'm going in and I hear my thoughts, and everything's magnified. But over time, when you go inside, you find a sanctuary. You don't have to go to the top of a mountain and live in a cave or join an ashram or any of that. You have your own temple. I call this my inner dojo. And I do this practice every day. I go into the internal. And this is where the power really is. And you know that. This is where the clarity of wisdom comes from.
I love that. In Greek, they call it the adytum, or the inner temple. And these are, you know, this comes from multiple traditions across multiple, you know, continents, and everyone's talking about the same thing, which is check in first. And I want to contrast this to the world of dumbified zombie, you know, people walking around getting milked by the parasitic elements that are out there, kind of living off of people's bad decisions and kind of poor ability to be conscious enough to step out of that bog, right? Like everyone's in some swamp with mosquitoes on their arms, and they don't even know that they need to, you know, shake them off and move out. So how much of this energy comes back as you do that U-turn? What happens in a person that finally switches that orientation, stops running around for answers like a hungry ghost, and comes home to be able to start making substantial changes and decisions from their own domain as a stakeholder in their life.
You nailed it. That is the ultimate question, and that's the ultimate shift, is when we do go inside. This is personal experience and watching hundreds of students that I get to coach, and I teach them how to go inside and use the body as the mechanism to get there. It's not getting all esoteric. You use this beautiful body to drive yourself inside. The meditations, moving meditations of Qigong are much easier to go inside for our Western-oriented minds. But as you start to go in, you do discover there's a different decision maker inside of you. There's the conditioned you, and there's the conscious you. It's kind of what I was talking about earlier. There seems to be two guys inside of us, and then there's one above them both. It's the higher perceptions. And everyone has access to them. We had them as children. We were so intuitive. Just look at little kids and you go, my goodness, look at what just came out of his or her mouth. Look at the wisdom. It just got covered up. That's all. We just disconnected from it. So it's so familiar when you go home. When you have those inspired thoughts, you're like, yeah, of course. Of course this is how I want to move through my world. So you asked, how does it show up? You start making different choices. You start spending time around different people. You naturally eat different food. You naturally go to the gym. It's not even a question, because it's hardwired. It's hardwired. We know the way. I know. I hope that's speaking to your point. I could go on and on about this one forever. The last thing I'll say about it, I really think, is getting the head connected with the heart. And what I mean by that is, I find that when I go inside and I turn off the noise and I allow myself just to settle into my being, that there's an inner wisdom. It's not channeling or anything weird. There's just an inner knowing that then speaks to my head and tells me what's the right thing to do. I know when to do it or why to do it. Maybe you would call that intuition, but you have a knowing. You have an inner guide. And that is how I think we change our lives and we change the world. I know it's what inspired you making your movie. Something got a hold of you and said, this is going to be an intense ride, brother, but maybe it didn't even tell you all that was to be involved. But your inner wisdom, your inner knowing knew this was the right thing, and it gave you the energy to create that, because I know it took a lot of energy.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, and I'll geek out for a second, I mean, if you think about Lord of the Rings, and if Frodo knew what the hell he was about to get into when he walked out of the Shire, he would have turned right back around. But it ended up being, you know, this epic journey that made him as a man or a hobbit. And that's where the hero's journey begins, right? In all things. I think the take-home message here, guys, is a return to our origins is a return to a deep innate wisdom that can guide us well into not just our own lives, but into a brighter future. And the ancient traditions that come from our origins really are holding that down. So if you're listening to this and you've been nodding your head, go, okay, how can I find some Tai Chi? How can I find some martial arts? How can I find some Qigong? How can I find some yoga? How can I tap into something that gets me lined up with the inner wisdom so that then I could walk in balance? And, you know, there's so many ways to climb that mountain. You and I have kind of picked some of the traditional Asian ways, but there's a million other ways, right?
There are many, many ways. Just like I said earlier, taking a walk around the neighborhood. Go with your wife, your kids, your pet, yourself, and look around. Turn off the noise and just recalibrate. Change your diet. You know, you don't have to have a teacher. It's beautiful if you do, but there's courses, there's classes, there's online learning. There's this experience that we're sharing right now. I mean, it's already happening. You're doing it right now. You're already doing it.
That's it. Tristan, man, you and I can do this for days. How can people find you? Because you're such an awesome human being, and you know it doesn't mean coming out to Austin, although that would be great for most people. I mean, you have an online universe as well. So tell people where they can find you.
That was my greatest intention. How can I share more love? So I created an online academy. So if anybody would like to see more of what we do, you go to a website called SatoriMethodAcademy.com. So that's SATORI Method is METHOD Academy.com. You can see what we're up to there. You can follow the different interviews and teleseminars, and we go all around teaching and sharing, and we create online courses for people so that they can take that next step to implement and integrate, and that's what it's about.
Yeah, but taking that step is the biggest part.
Yeah, you got to.
You got to take that step.
Got to do it.
Yeah. Hey man, well thank you so very much for being here. You know, you're a brother and you're just an awesome human being to always hang out with. Guys, check out his stuff. I mean, you know, he speaks for himself. It's, you know, you know how cool he is now. Check out his stuff. Help him help you. Help yourself so that you can help the world. And man, it's been an honor.
Always, anytime, anytime. And thank you for the gift you've just provided the world. It's something that I was hoping would come out, that I would see, and I'm so thrilled to be a part of it. So much gratitude.
Thank you. Thank you. This thing is way bigger than me, you and I, or anyone else. It's for, you know, our children's children, and it's an important piece that will hopefully inspire people across the planet to start making the right decisions so that we can have a planet. That'd be kind of cool, wouldn't it?
It's huge. What a beautiful, beautiful thing you've done. Thank you.
Thank you.